All right, folks, joining me now to talk about all this, we've got Andy McCarthy, former U.S. attorney, Fox News contributor. We've also got Gregg Jarrett, Fox News legal analyst and author of the upcoming book, Trial of the Century, out at the end of the month. I think the book will come out just before the debt ceiling ends. It's about the Scopes monkey trial. That was a joke. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Gregg Jarrett, let me talk with you. Let's start with you. Nobody wants to comment about this potential whistleblower, which some people feel is an FBI person. But the charges, the leaks charges that when Joe Biden was vice president, he traded money for favors. Those charges are very serious, somewhat remarkable charges. What do you think's going on here?
Well, if true, it would be bribery, which is an impeachable offense under treason, high crimes, bribery, misdemeanor. But, it's also separately a crime under the federal codes. But, Larry, given the other compelling evidence of Biden influence peddling schemes, it's not surprising, is it, that there might be a smoking gun document in the vaults of the FBI that could link Joe Biden directly to this, quote unquote, criminal enterprise involving an exchange of money for policy decisions. Hunter's laptop is filled with these lucrative deals that appear to sell access and promises of influence to foreign adversaries. What I worry about here is stonewalling, obstruction. Well, the DOJ and the FBI, they might try to up-classify the document after the fact. Oh, gee, it's classified now, can't show it to you, or maybe they'll claim it doesn't exist. But if it does exist, they may try to delay under the pretense that, oh, we investigated it, dismissed it, nothing to see here. So we'll have to wait and see.
Andy McCarthy, of course, if this were true, if there were any truth to it, this would completely rock the Biden White House and the Biden presidency, would totally change the presidential picture. But here's where I'm going on this. I don't know enough about James Comer. He's been on this show several times. He's the one who's issued a subpoena to try to get hold of these documents. At some point, the Justice Department or the FBI has to respond to the subpoena, I think. But Chuck Grassley, okay, if you know Chuck, I know Chuck, he's kind of a crusty old guy. He has nothing to fear. I don't think Chuck Grassley would be involved and engaged in this unless there was something there, unless he knew this whistleblower or had some evidence. Chuck Grassley does not go off the handle. He's been in office, Iowa senator for so long. That's the part that really seriously interests me. What do you think?
Well, I think this goes to something Greg just said, which is that we're dealing with two different issues, right? One is there such a document as what we've heard? And then the second issue, of course, is if there is such a document, is whatever the allegation is true? I'm with you, Larry, on Senator Grassley. It would be surprising to me if it turns out that there's no document that exists. Again, the document, if it's what it's described to be, would just be an allegation. And to be fair to President Biden, Larry, I know, anyone who's been in public office knows of any kind. I was a prosecutor for a long time. You get all kinds of allegations that people make that you've engaged in misconduct or you've done things that are corrupt, et cetera. So having an allegation out there wouldn't necessarily mean that Biden actually did anything wrong. But I would just point out that this investigation of the Bidens has been going on for 5 years. It's been going on under the auspices of the Biden Justice Department for about 2.5 years. If this was a Republican administration, the only story we would hear is why haven't they appointed a special counsel? How is it credible that the Biden Justice Department can investigate Biden? And now that we have a report which seems to be credible that at least there's a document that indicates there's a possibility of misconduct, I ask again, how on earth does Merrick Garland not appoint a special counsel when the whole point of that is to address conflicts of interest, which we clearly seem to have here?
Does Merrick Garland ignore a subpoena from the House? Does he just ignore it?
I don't know that he'll necessarily comply with it. I don't think he'll ignore it. What usually happens in these situations is, they hem and haw, and eventually they compromise. And what that would mean is that maybe Comer doesn't get the document, but at least he gets some of the information in the document. You know how this goes.
Interesting. Greg, speaking of 5 years and the Washington Post story, Josh Dawsey and others, it looks like an arraignment of Hunter Biden could be very close. And in fact, the U.S. attorney from Delaware apparently was in the meeting with Hunter Biden's attorneys. There was some confusion about that, but according to the Post anyway, and I think Josh Dawsey, I think they're all pretty good reporters. So here we go. I don't know much about the gun charges. The tax evasion charges interest me more. Now, maybe the gun charges are a bigger deal, but I think the tax evasion thing is a very big deal. And one of the things that I don't understand is this lawyer, what's his name? Morris, his name is, I think. Anyway, the lawyer...
Kevin Morris.
Kevin, yeah. So he paid Hunter's taxes, I think, $2 million a year ago or a couple years ago. That's a gift. That gift is taxable. Now, I don't know whether Hunter's paying the tax on that gift, but that's it. You know, this is not nothing. This is all smacks of the chicanery and corruption of this administration, in my judgment, at least. So what's going to happen at this? A, do you think there's going to be an arraignment? And B, what do you think the charges are going to be?
Well, to me, Larry, it's a red flag that this is a 5-year-old investigation that has produced no charges to date, despite a plethora of incriminating evidence. I mean, it's mind-boggling. 5 years. And it's also suspicious, and it leads me to think that the fix is in, especially after an IRS whistleblower has come forward to say that the DOJ has been politically interfering in the case to protect the Bidens. And, you know, this kind of partisan favoritism, this has become a shameful habit under Merrick Garland at the DOJ. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see a sweetheart deal for Hunter that would allow him to escape any serious consequences, including jail time, while foreclosing any other case against his father and family members who seem to have been complicit and involved, receiving, you know, truckloads of money that was shuttled from shell corporations to LLCs and then into their bank accounts. As far as the lawyer is concerned, I'm a California lawyer. This is a Hollywood, California lawyer. The code of conduct and the canons of ethics are very strict. You cannot be involved in a personal or business transaction with a client. You may not loan the client money except under 3 circumstances: to pay for court fees, deposition costs, and minimal necessary living expenses. $2.8 million to satisfy a debt of your client, that is strictly prohibited.
Well, Andy McCarthy, I mean, I would guess Hunter has a problem because he doesn't have enough money to pay off this paternity lawsuit with a judge in the Ozarks in northern Arkansas. Yeah. The Ozarks are different than L.A. or Bel Air. The Ozarks are somewhat different than Washington or New York. And Governor Mike Huckabee told us last night that this judge in the Ozarks, Batesville, Arkansas, I believe the town is one tough cookie and one smart cookie. So what do you make of that?
I think she's a pistol. You know, they one of the things that the woman in the case wants to prove is she wants to put an expert witness on the stand in order to draw out whatever financial information there was on the laptop.
Yep. And
Hunter's lawyer said, my client hasn't acknowledged that the laptop is his. And she said, yeah, funny thing about that. Is it his or isn't it his? Right. Here we are right here. Why don't we get to the bottom of that right now? Right. And in his best Latin, the lawyer responded, humana, humana, humana. So,
this,
you know,
this Ozark judge is going to do what nobody else has been able to do. Not only make him admit, but also find out what the hell is in this thing and what his financial situation really is. She's not going to let go of him. It's worse than a dog chewing a bone. I mean, she is going to have his ankle forever down in the Ozarks. He will never see Bel Air, California again in his lifetime until he fesses up.
Yeah, well, she told him next week, a week from tomorrow, he's got to provide all the financial information. And she told him she wanted complete answers, and incomplete answers are non-answers.
Yep.
So she's cracking the whip.
Yep, and it is the Ozarks. They do things a little differently down there, which is kind of great fun. Gregg Jarrett, I want to give you the last. I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show, but they do things a little differently down there. Gregg Jarrett, I'm going to give you the last one. This whole business about Anthony Blinken quarterbacking the Gang of 51 intel experts that probably changed the whole 2020 election. Anyway, that's my speculation. Jonathan Turley called it immaculate conception. Blinken denies that he ever did it. I know Morrell actually kind of fessed up, but all the 51 guys denied that they ever did it. So somebody must have done it. Somehow there was a letter, and the letter influenced the outcome of the election. Now, Blinken, I think he's got a big problem because he's going to wind up being subpoenaed. Under oath, he's going to have to say whether he sparked that letter or not.
Yeah, I mean, this constitutes one of the dirtiest political tricks, Larry, in modern presidential campaigns. I mean, Mike Morrell, you're right. He composed a letter, said he did, told Congress that Blinken was the impetus who triggered it when, Blinken was working for the Biden campaign. It was all a lie. It altered the election outcome, according to polling data. And Blinken now complains complete innocence in this sort of semantical word salad. Blinken's bigger problem, Larry, is the alleged evidence that he lied to Congress during the confirmation process when he denied emailing Hunter Biden. I mean, we've seen the emails. Fox News published them. It's a crime to make a false representation to Congress and perjury if under oath. And it's also an impeachable offense. So, I think Blinken's got some serious problems.
This is the most fun I've had since the Nixon days. This is the most fun since the Nixon days. It's like every day there's a new thing, just like Nixon. And in those days, I was a Democrat. Ha, 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 ha. I was, seriously. Anyway, just thought I'd toss that in biographically. And
we all sin, Larry.
Yes, exactly right. And some of us learn, or some of us learn part of the time. Andrew McCarthy, thank you, sir. Gregg Jarrett, thank you, sir. Can we flash the book one more time? It's that Scopes Monkey Trial. It's a fabulous book. I got a copy of it. I've already started reading it. The Trial of the Century. There it is. All right, folks. Thank you ever so much. Coming up here.